Hello, everyone. Welcome to Empowerment in Illness. I am your host, Gwen, and today we're continuing our series, Living with Autoimmune Diseases and Chronic Illness, with our third episode, Navigating Relationships and Intimacy with the Chronic Illness. Whether it's your partner, your family, or even your close friends, chronic illness changes the way we connect with others. And let's be honest, it's not always easy. Today, we'll talk about the impact of illness on relationships, communication struggles, boundaries, and even intimacy. Because yes, that matters too. This episode isn't about quick fixes. It's about real talk. Whether you're in a relationship, dating, or struggling with family dynamics, you're not alone. So let's get into it. Let's start with the foundation. How chronic illness changes relationships. Whether it's family, friendships, or romantic partners, illness shifts dynamics in ways we don't always anticipate. And it's okay to admit that these changes are challenging. It's about recognizing those changes and learning how to navigate them with clarity, self-compassion, and the understanding that relationships evolve. Let's break this down into 3 core areas: role shifts, emotional distance, and friendship. The first one is role shifts, when relationships change. One of the first things people notice about being diagnosed with a chronic illness is how much their role in relationships changes. Maybe you used to be the one who took care of others, but now you're the one needing support. That can be a tough pill to swallow. Or maybe you're in a romantic relationship where you and your partner were equals, but now they've taken on caregiving role. It's natural for this to create tension, even when both people have the best intentions. Let's go through some common role shifts that happens. You go from partner to caregiver. You used to split responsibilities, but now your partner handles more of the household chores, financial duties, or even your medical care. They may feel overwhelmed, and you may feel guilty. There could be a fear of losing the romantic aspect of the relationship. You can go from independent to dependent. If you've always been self-sufficient, it can be frustrating to need help with everyday tasks. Accepting assistance doesn't mean losing your independence. It means recognizing that interdependence is a part of life. The challenge is learning how to ask for help without feeling like a burden. You can go from social butterfly to limited energy. Maybe you used to be the one planning gatherings, taking care of everyone else, and always being available. Now, your illness limits your ability to go out or be as engaged as before. Some people in your life may not understand why you can't show up in the same way, which can create friction. So what do? You acknowledge the change. Ignoring it won't make it easier. Have honest conversations with the people closest to you about how roles are shifting. You can avoid guilt spirals. You're not a burden. You're not a problem to be solved. The people who love you want to support you. Keep romance alive. If your partner has become a caregiver, find ways to maintain your romantic connection through small gestures, conversations, and shared experiences beyond illness. And accept help with gratitude. Instead of saying, "I hate that I have to ask for help," try, "Thank you for being here for me. It means a lot." The second one is emotional distance, when people pull away. One of the hardest part of living with a chronic illness is feeling like people are drifting away. Sometimes that's because they don't know how to help. Other times it's because they feel uncomfortable facing the reality of illness. There are common reasons people become distant. They don't understand your illness and don't know how to ask. They feel helpless and don't want to say the wrong thing. They assume if you need help, you ask, but they don't realize how hard it is to ask. They expect you to be the same person you were before your diagnosis. This can be especially painful in romantic relationships. A partner who once seemed so engaged might withdraw emotionally. They might be struggling with their own feelings, fear, stress, even grief over the life you once shared. But how do you rebuild emotional connections? You name the elephant in the room. If you feel distant growing, say something. Like, I've noticed that you've been quiet lately. Is something on your mind? Sometimes just acknowledging the shift opens the door for deeper conversation. Give them ways to help. If someone pulls away because they don't know what to do, offer suggestions, such as, I don't need big things, but checking in once a week would mean a lot. Try to understand their perspective. Just like we grieve the life we had before illness, loved ones may grieve too. And recognize when to let go. If someone consistently minimizes your illness, dismisses your struggles, or make you feel worse, it may be time to rethink that relationship. The third one is friendships. Who stays, who leaves. We don't talk about this enough, but chronic illness shows you who your real friends are. Some people will step up in ways you've never expected. Others, maybe even people you thought were close, will start fading away. Why do some friendships change after a chronic illness? Well, they don't know how to handle it. They'd rather pretend nothing is wrong than have conversations, or they miss who you used to be. They don't understand that you're still you, even if your abilities have changed. They don't want to deal with limitations. If you can't go out as much or need accommodations, some people see that as inconvenience. And then there are those who assume you don't want to be included. Instead of asking, they just stop inviting you. I want to make this clear. Your worth is not measured by how many people stick around. Quality matters more than quantity. So how do we handle friendship changes? We notice who makes an effort. Do they check in? Do they listen without judgment? Do they adjust plans to include you? Communicate what you need. If someone is a good friend, but just doesn't understand, be honest about how they can support you. You can recognize when to move on. Some friendships naturally fade, and that's okay. Let go of relationships that drain you. Find your people. Support group, online communities, and chronic illness advocacy spaces can connect you with others who get it. One of the biggest challenges in any relationship is communication. Add chronic illness to the mix, and suddenly it's even more complicated. Here are some common communication challenges. You don't look sick. We've all heard it. People struggle to understand invisible illnesses, and that can feel invalidating. Not wanting to complain. We don't want to sound like we're always sick, so sometimes we downplay our symptoms. But when we don't speak up, it creates more misunderstandings. Family members who don't get it. Sometimes the people closest to us have the hardest time accepting our limitations. So how do we fix this? We communicate better. Be honest but brief. Instead of saying, I feel horrible all the time, try, today, I'm having a lot of joint pain, so I need to take it slow. You can use I statements. Instead of saying, you never understand, say, I feel frustrated when my illness isn't taken seriously. And choose your battles. Not every comment deserves a response. Some people won't understand, no matter how much you explain, and that's okay. Boundaries also play a huge role. If a friend constantly pressures you to go out when you're exhausted, it's okay to say no. If family members keep offering unsolicited medical advice, it's okay to tell them you don't want to discuss it. Boundaries protect your energy and mental health. Now, let's shift gears and talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. Intimacy. Intimacy is an important part of human connection. But when chronic illness enters the picture, it can change the way we experience closeness with our partners. Whether it's physical limitations, fatigue, medication side effects, or emotional struggles, intimacy takes on new challenges. But here's the truth. Intimacy isn't just about physical connection. It's about emotional closeness, vulnerability, and feeling seen by your partner. Today, we're going to break down how chronic illness affects intimacy, how to navigate these changes with confidence, and how to build connection with your partner, even when illness gets in the way. There's no shame, no awkwardness, just real talk. Let's start with the biggest reality. Intimacy changes when chronic illness is involved, and that's okay. The important thing is understanding how and why these changes happen so we can work through them instead of avoiding them. Here are some of the most common struggles people with chronic illness face when it comes to intimacy. Fatigue and low energy. Some days, even getting out of bed is exhausting. By the time evening rolls around, the last thing on your mind might be intimacy. Your partner may misinterpret this as rejection, when in reality, your body is just out of energy. Physical pain and mobility issues. Joint pain, muscle stiffness, migraines, nerve pain. Whatever symptoms you experience, they don't disappear just because intimacy is on the table. What was once enjoyable might now be painful or uncomfortable. Some people worry about pushing through the pain to make their partner happy, but this can create resentment and worsen symptoms. Medication side effects. Many medications impact libido, mood, and physical response. It's frustrating to feel like your body isn't reacting the way it used to, and it's easy to start feeling disconnected. Body image struggles, weight changes, scars, medical devices, hair loss. Chronic illness can alter how you see yourself. Feeling self-conscious can lead to pulling away from intimacy, even when you crave connection. The fear of not being attractive enough can weigh heavily on a relationship. Let's pause here. If any of this resonates with you, know that I understand. So many people experience these challenges, but that doesn't mean intimacy is off the table. It just means we need to redefine what intimacy looks like. The biggest myth about intimacy is that it's all about physical connection. But let's take a step back. What is intimacy, really? At its core, intimacy is about closeness, connection, and trust. And those things can be built in so many ways beyond just physicality. Here are ways to redefine intimacy. Emotional intimacy. Feeling truly seen and heard by your partner creates a deeper bond. Things like reminiscing about favorite memories, talking about future dreams, or sharing your fears can be just as powerful as physical closeness. Intellectual intimacy. Deep conversations, learning something new together, reading the same book. These can bring you closer in unexpected ways. If physical intimacy is limited, focus on deepening the emotional connecting in other ways. Affection without pressure. Holding hands, cuddling, massages, or just laying close together can still create intimacy without expectation. Many couples struggle with intimacy after illness because they feel pressure to perform a certain way. Removing that pressure can make a huge difference. Humor and shared joy. Laughter is one of the most underrated forms of intimacy. Watching a funny show together, sharing inside jokes, or just being silly can bring back a sense of closeness. Intimacy is about feeling connected. And there are so many ways to create that connection beyond what we traditionally think of. Let's shift the focus from what you can't do to what you can do. One of the hardest things about intimacy and chronic illness is talking about it. It can feel awkward, vulnerable, or even scary. But the reality is, avoiding the conversation only leads to more confusion, frustration, and distance. So how do we bring it up? Choose the right time and setting. These conversations shouldn't happen in the heat of the moment or when emotions are high. Pick a calm, neutral time when you both feel comfortable. You can use I statements. Instead of saying, "You don't understand what I'm going through," try, "I feel nervous about how my illness has changed our intimacy, and I'd love to talk about it." This approach creates a conversation rather than blame. Be honest about limitations, but open to solutions. If a certain activity causes pain, express it. If fatigue is a big issue, talk about ways to create intimacy at different times of the day when you have more energy. Ask your partner how they feel. Your partner may have their own fears about hurting you, about saying the wrong thing, or even about their own feelings of helplessness. Let them express their concerns too. Intimacy is a two-way street. Be patient. This is an ongoing conversation. Needs change over time. Keep the dialogue open so you both feel safe discussing how to navigate this part of your relationship. So how do we keep relationships strong in the face of chronic illness? Here are a few mindset shifts to help. Not everyone will understand, and that's okay. You don't have to convince people of your struggles. You are not a burden. Being sick doesn't mean you're unworthy of love and support. And quality over quantity. The people who stay are the ones who truly matter. If a relationship, whether romantic, family, or friendship, is worth keeping, it will evolve alongside you. The key is mutual effort. Before we leave, I would like to close with the special portion of the show I call Healing Heartbeats. This is where we allow ourselves to wallow in sorrow. Give yourself 3 minutes to laugh, cry, scream, cuss, or just sit in silence. Whatever you need to do to feel it, do it. Let the depression in for only 3 minutes. Once you've reached 3 minutes, compartmentalize it and get back to living. This is a rinse and repeat behavior. You cannot let depression take over, because when it does, it will not let go. When we hear about the passing of someone, they have the day they were born and the day they passed away. There is a dash in the middle. It's not a long line, but a short dash. That dash represents your life. Go live in spite of having a chronic illness. Don't let your condition stop you. That's all for today's episode of Empowerment in Illness. If this conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, you are never alone in this journey. Chronic illness changes relationships, but it doesn't make you unlovable. It doesn't make you unworthy. You are still you, and you deserve connection, intimacy, and love. Until next time, take care of yourself. Remember, you have the strength, the heart, and the support to continue your journey. Be safe.